كتاب الله حادينا يؤم بنا ويحدونا منارا ضاء في يدنا ينير الدلج يهدينا كتاب
وهاجا وأنزلنا من المبصرات ماء ثجاجا لنخرج به حبا ونباتا وجنات ألفافا إن يوم الفصل كان ميقاتا يوم ينفخ في السور فتأتون أفواجا وفتحت السماء فكانت أبوابا وسيرت الجبال فكانت سرابا إن جهنم كانت مرصادا للطاغين مآبا لابثين فيها أحقابا لا يذوقون فيها بردا ولا شرابا إلا
generational conflict or parent-child conflict. And especially I was given how the misunderstanding and miscommunication that happens between a parent and child happens, what factors influence, exacerbate, or worsen these conflicts. So what I did is I asked some youngsters, some youth, and I asked them to write for me some of the issues that parents and children most of the time fight over. So they wrote me this one page, and I will read so you can all see and hear. Number one, they said the title, they wrote parent and child conflict. Number one, they said reasons, hanging out with friends. So this is a point of conflict between parents and children, hanging out with friends. And then they put in brackets, especially girls. I don't know why they made that so special. They said this is a problem, and it is specifically a big problem when it comes to girls. Number two, overnight, school trips, all the issue that parents and children usually clash over is overnight and activities. For example, some students, some children want to go somewhere. School trips, activities, staying with friends, things like that, they fight over. Another thing that the youngsters or the youth identified is clothing. And then they, in brackets, they said girls, special clothing, how to dress, is also a point of conflict. Another big one is substance abuse or substance use. This is a big one. So it could be smoking, it could be using weed, could be alcohol, could be very hardcore drugs. So this also another point of conflict. Another one, they said, yeah. Okay, this is a big one. Overprotective parents and assuming bad things of a child. Another conflict, they said, sometimes the parents, they assume the child is doing something bad because they are overprotective, and that creates a conflict between the child and the parent. Another issue, they said, is the social media. You know, the limit, how much time parents allow a child to use the internet, for example, or the computer, or, you know, their smartphones. and the time they spend on social media is another problem. Another one they identified is open communication. Open communication. And they said in brackets, if parents says no, they don't explain why. Parents have their expectations and children have their expectations, but both don't communicate it to each other. So that is also a point of conflict. Different expectations between the child and the parent, and the inability to communicate their expectations. That also creates a problem. Another one, they said, lack of parent support. And then they say they notice the bad more than the good. Lack of parent support, in brackets, they said they notice the bad more than the good. So as you can tell, the theme that is emerging here is that because the youngsters wrote this, so you can tell if you are a parent, say, how come they don't give us any credit for anything? It's just, so they are talking about their side of the story. And if you are a parent, it's okay to understand, like them with homework. So this is another thing. The parents encourage children towards success in the school. However, they don't, actively participate in that effort. And then these children are very specific. They said they don't show up for parent-teacher conference. They don't help them with homework and things like that. So it's like, I want you to be successful, but I will not be part of that. You do it on your own. So the children are saying, we need your help. I want you to come to the school, talk to the teachers, talk to the school administration, check how I'm doing. If I'm struggling, I need your support. So that's another thing. Another one, they said feeling safe talking to the parents about touchy topics. That's another one. So this is a big one. Feeling safe talking to parents about touchy topics. Touchy topics, what do they mean? Topics which are very sensitive, that they feel like, oh, I can never share this with my parents. And that creates a conflict between the parent and the child. Because if the child feels like this is a touchy topic, and I cannot go to my parents to talk about it, then I will just wait until something big happens and then we'll talk. But it would have been very helpful when these touchy topics are starting, if they had the courage and the confidence to go to their parents and then share, I'm feeling this, I'm understanding this, what does this mean? So sometimes the ability to talk touchy topics. Last one, they said, understanding that their children live in America, in capitals. We grew up here, and the culture and the problems that we face in this culture are completely different with what you grew up with as a father, as a mother. So we want you to understand that in this culture there are differences. So that is the few things that they wrote. Maybe it will give you an idea. Now I want to move on. To everything, your culture, your religion, and you melt in the culture. That's one way. Another way is isolation. You isolate yourself completely from the culture that you live in. And the middle way is integration. You take the parts which are useful, which do not conflict with your culture, your religion. You integrate what is useful to you in this culture. And what is not useful to you, you leave it behind. But immigrants, refugees, when they come to a new culture, they take one path out of these three. Either they assimilate, means they melt in the culture, they forget everything about their culture, their religion, their ethnicity, all of that. They become like what we call, here we might say they become Americans. Americans in the sense that they will also dislike the culture they came from. So they go on the other side. Other people, they isolate themselves. They are so disconnected. They live on the margins of the society. And both one, there is a risk. But the best one is when you live somewhere in the middle and you integrate parts. And there are research that shows kids who have their culture have more success than either of those two, if they assimilate completely or if they isolate themselves completely. So somewhere in the middle is the best. Another one, language, a major barrier to inclusion for Somalis in Amsterdam. It's another European city, Amsterdam. So another one is language barrier. So this one may be mostly for parents. And if the children are dependent and looking up to the parent, and the parents are struggling with this, somehow it will affect the child. Another one, Somali refugees in Amsterdam, the struggle and opportunities. So there are some opportunities here, and there are also struggles, some challenges. Helsinki is also another city. Challenge remain in employment and education. So it depends, but I just want you to see the challenges. Sometimes the challenge might be employment and education. Other times it might be acceptance from the culture that you're in. Sometimes it might be a language. So when all of these things are happening, what effects it will have on the children. And now, I would like to share with you the consequences of the conflict. Here in America, they did a lot of research on parent-child conflict, intergenerational conflict, and then these are some of the things they found out. They said if the problem between parent-child is so severe, some of the consequences are, number one, academic problems. The child will struggle with academics, schooling. Another one is depression. They might more likely to be depressed. Another one is anxiety. Another one is behavioral problems. The kids will have behavioral problems. And then the big one is substance abuse. The kids engage in drugs and other things. And the reason they are thinking all these things is because it puts a lot of strain and stress on the child when he or she cannot communicate with the parent. So that burden and that stress is on the child. To escape from that, some children will resort using substances to relieve the pain or the stress that they encounter when they interact with parents. Another kids, the way kids are all different, it doesn't mean all kids we will have the same results. No, it's different.